What is up, guys? I'm here today with Mr. Brian Cage. We're gonna do some shoulders. This came about because he slid into my DMs. He asked if I was single. I said I'm married and said no, but then he said, okay, well, can we at least work out together? And I said, yeah, that's good.
Beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah. And so pretty much I just asked him, what do you want to train? Kind of going through body parts, what he already trained. We just landed on shoulders. So for you guys today, hopefully what can I get out of this workout is I'm gonna give you a nice structured shoulder workout that you can follow as well too. And if I had to say, I hate to say favorite because that indicates there's best exercises or best workouts or things like that, but it's a great place to start, I think, for a lot of people as far as like efficient movements and efficient workout. The structure of it is what we're gonna go through today. And then obviously as we go through each exercise, I'll give some talking points on each. I'll give some alternatives if you guys don't have cables, and I'll even talk about sets and reps because everybody always asks me how many sets, how many reps, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll say all that for you guys as well too. And the only thing I'll say before we start, that my sequence is a teeny bit different today. You're gonna see I start with raises. So we're gonna start with side raises, we're gonna go to rear delt raises, and then we're gonna go to kind of the overhead compound press. And I don't think there's anything wrong. Someone's gonna say, oh, you gotta start with your compound movements first. And I'm like, I obviously understand all the arguments for that. But from professional observation and experience, most people's delts aren't lacking front delts, because you get so much front delt stimulus from any type of pressing. Most people that don't have that round full delt, that roundness comes from big rear delts, big side delts. So I like to prioritize them, especially side delts. You can never be too wide. So I like to start with those first. And then the other reason as well too is someone will argue that, oh, we need to do pressing first. Again, that whole big compound movement thing. From, again, my experience, starting with raises first doesn't even take away from pressing strength anyway. So again, we're prioritizing things that I think will have the most impact on most people's physiques. And again, pressing is extremely important. Obviously, we want to overhead press a bazillion pounds with proper form if we can. But again, even doing that after raises doesn't necessarily take away from it. So that's the little setup today. And then also I'm just gonna kick his ass. So
yeah, so I'll let you know how great it went. So
yeah, and so I will say that as well too. Like a lot of times I have somebody come in for a one-off session here and there. Hopefully, obviously we'll give them some form, some tips, some things like that. But then also I say as well too, like, if I was gonna train somebody long-term, it's about one workout in sequence of like, where are we going from there? Today we're getting a one-off. Obviously we'll give him some tips and cues he can take away with him, but then also just the experience of absolutely murdering him, because that's something you can take with you after that as well too.
Absolutely.
Right, I mean, because everybody can train on their own. You might as well get murdered when you train with me, so.
Absolutely, let's do it.
All right,
Let's do it.
Let's get at it. So most of the things today really take our time with the warm-ups. So I might have you sometimes do as many as like 3, 4, 5 warm-ups, but like more so just to really nail the form. And then we'll probably do, 2 working sets on most things, so we won't go too nuts. Maybe some drop sets, we'll see how everything goes. But for setup on these, this is just kind of for semantics. I have these hooked on like behind the little ball thing, just so they don't cross over and hit as much. And then obviously when you stick your hand in, you just want this thing pointing that way, because otherwise it'll kind of like, if it was this way, it like runs into your arm. So that's why I have it like that. But so putting the hands through there. And then for the most part, just kind of like keep like a fist. Like you'll see it'll kind of settle like kind of right in your wrist there. But then I just like to keep the hands kind of tight just so they're not kind of flopping around or loose or whatever. And then lay back. And then so from here, all the warm-ups again, this will obviously be lighter, but I want you to bring them just to the point where like these are about to cross. So a little pause right there. And then just kind of feel your comfortable point raising up. Like some people feel a little bit more comfortable stopping here. Most people, you can pull it kind of all the way back, kind of like almost like a, whatever, kind of a Y position at the top. And so obviously the real benefit of the cables, one, is you can have a lot more freedom, like plane of motion than you will with a dumbbell. But 2, like probably the most important is that it's load down here. Where obviously dumbbells are really light down there. So that's like the number one reason people are like, oh, why do you do cables? One, like I said, you get a lot of manipulation with alignment, but honestly it's because it's, in my opinion, you can do a machine as well too, but it's the one that's the hardest in that bottom position, and most people undertrain that position if you only just do dumbbell raises. And for all these, just kind of keep them intentionally slow, so just have a little pause and squeeze. And same thing at the bottom, a little pause. As you come to the top, keep the elbows a little straighter and think more wide as well too. So really keep them wide. You can still come all the way up. There you go. Yep. Good. Get a little pause. Drive wide, hard squeeze.
I do like how you can go deeper, cause like especially not with the cable, but because it's lay down position.
Yep.
That gives you definitely more pain-free shouldering.
Yes. Okay, let's just go 3 more. Those are good. Give that wide, hard squeeze. Good. Nice. I'll take a break. So guys, it's something Brian was just commenting there, and I'm gonna clarify for him why it feels generally so good. Like lots of people when they're doing dumbbell lateral raises just kind of tend to come straight up in this position. And this lines up well because his side delt's like right on top of the joint. So with the dumbbell, that is a really good position to get all the stimulus there. The tough part is when you're kind of coming to this high elbow position, this high upper arm position, most people are pretty internally rotated. So like it kind of almost just feels like it stops there, and lots of times it is. It's because the joint, like how your humerus sits on the side of your scapula, it's literally just kind of starting to smush some stuff, and people will feel like, I don't really want to go any higher than that. Because of lying down here and having the cables higher, so if we're gonna set this up somewhere, I like them a little bit higher as opposed to right on shoulder height, although there's not really a complete right or wrong. The cables are coming more from this direction, and he's able to pull more in this direction. So when he was going, he's like, oh, it feels comfortable, I can kind of go deeper, kind of go higher, is because when you're in this position, the difference here is he's more externally rotated. Generally, as you externally rotate your upper arm there in the shoulder joint, it creates some more room in there. So again, where here feels like kind of like, oh, this is restrictive, this kind of runs out. In this position, it kind of feels like, oh, there's some more room. And again, the nice part about this is because we can change the cable's position, is this still lines up really well with the side delt. So both of them, dumbbells or that, still line up in a good position. But this one, because of the cables having a little bit more versatility, that little more external rotation can feel really comfy on the shoulder joint. And it's nice then too, because between the two, again, this is fine for dumbbell laterals, but if you're doing these, you get a lot more range of motion. So if you can opt for more range of motion, especially when there's good load and especially when it's comfortable, I tend to opt for that when we can. So if you guys doing this at home too, don't overthink the cable. So you can hopefully see from the side here, obviously his shoulders are here, the cable height's probably right up here. And so in general, somewhere above shoulder height, kind of so you have this kind of high to low type motion, is a good place to start. But mess around with it, that's the beauty of the cables. If a little lower feels more comfortable for you, great. If a little higher feels more comfortable for you, great. And again, that can also change some stuff at your shoulder joints. So take your time with the setup. There is some individual component here. Those look good.
I didn't even realize not only do you have the cuffs on, but that you have the cuffs on like behind the balls with that too, like.
Yeah. Slow, steady problem solving. I mean, because honestly, it's like at some point in time, I literally remember the first time I did.
Just hold on to the ball, yeah, I assume.
I'm trying to remember the very first time I did actually was on you know, Life Fitness makes like a dual cable like row. So that was the first time I was like on there, and I was like just grabbing handles, you know, so just like, because obviously for anybody watching, if you don't have cuffs, you can obviously still do this with handles, it's perfectly fine. You're just gonna get a couple limitations with that. But the very first time I ever did this lying down with handles, and the whole reason was I just wanted to try a lateral raise lying down, and I'm sure someone has done this before this, whenever this was 10 years ago though or something, but I remember lying down and like, because obviously you see everybody does lateral raises, how do they do them in the gym normally? Like most people, it's like you literally just go watch the rack and every single dude's gonna grab like 50-pound dumbbells and go like this. You know, so it's like if your knees are moving, your hips are moving, your back is moving, everything's moving, like is it really a delta exercise? Is it at least not isolated? So my whole thing was like, all right, I just wanna see how it feels like really strict. So that was the first reason that I did that. And then at some point in time, like you'll see, like if you do like long sets on these, which we do like especially like a drop set or stuff, like eventually like the grip does actually start to go a little bit, yeah. And then I can even make the argument moving the load contact point a little closer to the shoulder joints, a little bit more joint friendly. So at some point in time I had like some other cuffs, and I remember trying them on, I was like, man, that feels a lot better than I actually even like thought it would. And then just for this stuff, so it's like when anybody does normal cables, I do this sometimes for like triceps and stuff as well too, is like obviously when you're crossing, it just pisses me off when these things like run into each other. Yeah. So at some point in time I was like, oh, if I put it behind that, then I don't have that happen as much, so. Just.
Oh yeah, well, the two cables cross.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like the standing rear delts, and so it's like, do-do, they get stuck.
Yeah, that shit pisses me off, yeah. So that's the main reason I do that. Good rep. Let's go about 3 more. Same pace, good control. Good. Nice. So for anybody at home that doesn't have cables, so if you guys want to follow this exact same workout and you don't have cables, I get it. If you have a good lateral raise machine, I actually like most lateral raise machine. The same thing, obviously, if it's one where it's the arm pad or the handles, because there's some load at the bottom. Generally, like they're a little hit or miss because sometimes they're just not as much, they're not as comfortable. So it depends a little bit on the setup and the machine and that kind of thing. But the option that everybody should have would just be dumbbell laterals. If you want to do this, and obviously you just have access to dumbbells, the only thing I'll recommend is just do them on a bench. So one, you could actually sit on a bench, or even another step better is just go on a bench like this. So one being a little forward lean, like I said, one, this helps you be a little bit more externally rotated at the top. So this is generally a little bit more of a comfortable way to do your lateral raises. And then also, what's the point of the bench? Kind of like I mentioned before, is just to keep you from cheating, right? So if nothing else, like, yeah, the downfall of this compared to the cables, in my opinion, is there's still no load here, right? When that dumbbell is right below the shoulder joint, I can sit here and relax all day, but it's still fine because there's obviously challenge going through this part. But at least using a bench will keep you more honest, will keep you stricter. So again, for you guys wanting to do this workout, once I go over sets and reps and all that stuff at the end, that can be your substitute if you don't have cables. We'll do a working set here. So basically the whole goal for you here, I want you to keep everything exactly the same, because I'll probably take you just a little bit past failure. So when you're getting to the point where it feels like obviously you're stuck, I'm just gonna spot you basically like right here. Yep. So I'm gonna reach in and just make sure you're finished right through the movement, because that'll be the whole thing. Obviously, is if you were by yourself, you know there'd be a point where it's like you feel like you're stuck and can't go. The temp would be to cheat. I just want you to stick with the exact same tempo, the exact same pace, and I'll get you there. Perfect. Good, come on, couple more. Everything stays the same now. Nice, smooth reps. Little pause, drive wide. Go, 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 go. Good. Nice. Again, same spot every time. You got this. Drive wide, go, go, go. I got you, I got you. Go, 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 go. Good, you got another one. Stay tight, same control. Got you. Finish, finish, finish. Stick with it, stick with it. Come on. Yeah. Down slow, down slow. Fight it. Nice.
Oh, man, those last couple negatives.
Yeah.
Definitely make you get real heavy real quick.
Oh, yeah. For everybody watching too, I think it's worth noting, because I'll still have people, especially if you're new here, comment, I'm like, oh, like what tempo do you use? And I honestly never think about tempo ever. The only thing I really coached him or cued him at all on tempo was to pause at end ranges. And so in general, I think it's a good rule of thumb, if something's a new motion, go slower than you maybe like could. So like obviously when he's warming up at 20 pounds, you kind of got to go intentionally slower, because he could just obviously sling it. But even then, one of the easiest things is just stop at end ranges. So if he stops here and then squeezes and stops here, then that's one of the best things I think people can do that's really practical, real easy, to minimize momentum. Because one way or the other, you can kind of argue different tempos all day, but you don't want momentum. If you're ever bouncing in a direction change, you're using something other than your muscles. But once somebody gets something, again, I almost never coach anyone on tempo. Like if people generally have better muscle control and better form, can go faster without still having momentum, without cheating. Whereas again, people that don't have as good a control, I think would want to err on the side of slower. So that was the only cues I gave him here, was really pause, pause. And then obviously when he's got a heavy enough load now, you really can't go too fast unless you're just really cheating and dropping shit. And so that was the only thing I said as we go into working sets, is him just try and keep the same pace, the same feel that he already had. And then obviously not let that change when we're actually doing some work. So what we'll do on this one, I'm gonna have you, we'll go straight set here, the same thing. So the same way it'll take you, 1 or 2 past failure. And then I'll have you sit up, just take like one hand out, and I'm gonna drop the pin from 50 to 30, and we'll just do 1 drop set, okay? Good, here we go now, foam reps. Go. Couple more now. Control. Drive wide, come on. Hard squeeze, hard squeeze, hard squeeze. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. We got one more.
Yep.
Control.
Yep.
Go, 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 go. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Finish, 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 finish. There we go. Down slow. Nice. All right. Good. Here we go now. There we go. Control, couple more. Go, 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 go. Good. We got 2 now.
Yep.
Best ones, let's go. Yep, one more. Come on, come on, come on. Finish. Bring them down. I'm gonna have you do a couple partials at the bottom. So bring them all the way together, same spot that you were. Just straight out. Good. Not too fast, still smooth pace. There we go, just straight out. Don't worry about height, they just go where they go. Keep going, come on. Drive wide, good, keep going. Drive wide, you got 5 more. If they move, they count, come on. 5, 4, 3, 2, last one, come on. Nice. All right, guys, so that was exercise number 1, cuff lateral raises. For people that will ask, how many reps, how many sets? We did 2 sets. I think the first set, and this is just a general ballpark, just make sure you do at least 5 reps. I think the first set, our goal was probably around 8, so maybe we did 8, I'd say on his own-ish, and then maybe like 1, 2 force reps. And then the second one, we had to go a little bit lighter, obviously, because we went to failure already, and I wanted to keep at least in a similar rep range. So I think the second set was pretty much almost the same rep range, so maybe around 8 to 10. And then we did 1 drop set. So again, as soon as he was done with that, drop the pin, and then the drop set probably again was 5 to 8 reps, similar with the, a little bit of forced reps on there as well too. And then honestly finish with some partials. Right now, some people are discussing, which is just kind of funny to me, people that don't actually train people, will kind of like almost argue straight sets versus drop sets and all the supersets. And it's not, normal people just realize it's not a versus thing. You can do both. I think especially if you're new, especially if you're a beginner, you should have most of the focus on straight sets, not doing lots of drop sets, supersets. But again, in my brain and what we're just kind of trying to do today is we'll make sure that we get, you know, a couple really good sets first. So that's why I kind of 2 is just kind of a default, where I think I don't like super high volume where people just end up doing a bunch and a lot of it ends up being garbage. I'd rather try and get a lot more out of less. So we got 2 sets that we're trying to hit really hard. And then what's a drop set? What are those partials? It's just more stimulus, right? So again, if we stopped at 2 sets, he'd have so much. And then obviously if we do a drop set, we do some partials, we get a little bit more. And again, it doesn't have to be a versus thing. Yes, if it was should I do a workout that's all straight sets or all supersets, I would be partial to all the straight sets. But in actual practical application, today we'll do mostly straight sets to start, and then we might just add a little bit of stimulus here and there for some drop sets. And again, a lot of the science world now just like overly focused, I think, on mechanisms, like, oh, well, this is this and this is that. And honestly, they forget about the other form of evidence is results. And personally, I've found with delts, particularly, that they respond well to straight sets as the priority, but I also like adding a little bit of dense work in, again, with something simple, with some drop sets, some partials, stuff like that. So again, practical standpoint, it's not a one versus the other. I say yes, prioritize straight sets, but you know, if you find that a little extra stimulus works well for you or your clients, sprinkling in some dense work with drop sets and things like that, I like that as well too. So we're gonna do cables. I was debating if we're gonna do the pec deck or cables, but I figured we might as well do cables while we're here, just because it's, cables in my opinion have the most versatility and have the most, you know, the best for lineup and alignment. And honestly, I think that's the most important thing for rear delts, because the reason I prefer this again to maybe like dumbbells is the same reason it's challenging through that lengthened position and not just at the top. And then again, cables, just like dumbbells, you know, you have a lot of, again, we can try some different hand positions, arm paths and all that, and just kind of find out what lines up and feels best for you. Because again, I was also thinking about maybe doing the reverse pec deck, which I also think is a good rear delt exercise. The only limitation there is there's a little less freedom with alignment. You're kind of stuck in the plane of the machine. But yeah, so the only thing I'm gonna have you do different here is just because of the plane and direction we're pressing, I'm just gonna have you grab the handle like that. So literally just put like most of the pressure through the outside the butt of your hand, and then just kind of light with the fingers just to keep it in place. So you're gonna do that with both of them. And then obviously you could do this just standing. So obviously a lot of people do standing rear delts. The only reason I like to do it here is same thing, just keep things more strict. And we'll mess around with positions. So again, same thing, bring them pretty much to the point where they're, you know, about to touch, and then just drive straight back to your kind of comfy spot. And I'll look at like your rear delt and see kind of how it is. But basically any position from, you know, this kind of higher elbow position I think is fine. And then we can mess around with too, is some people feel a little bit more comfortable kind of coming down here. Yeah, and then honestly, so for me, it's really just a comfort thing. Again, you've seen, in my opinion, some crap information where people talk about, oh, like the rear delt fibers, somebody made up at some point in time, they run at a 45-degree angle, so you have to go here, which again is idiotic, because they attach, basically they go right across the joint and basically they follow the humerus. So again, like when my arm's here, they're at this angle. When my arm's here, they're at this angle. When my arm's here, they're at this angle. Yeah, so so if you get it lined up right, all these arm positions can work great. But the thing you should listen to is your shoulder joint, right? So that is like, some people don't feel as comfortable in this high spot and they can't get back as far. And some people it's just a little bit more down here. Like this is a comfy spot for a lot of people, but some people, if you can feel like you can extend a little bit further and it's comfortable on your shoulder joint, that's fine as well too. The only thing I consider as well too, the reason I like this higher position sometimes for some people is I find it's easier to keep everything else out of it. So if you're up here, rear delt's really one of the only things that can contribute a whole lot. Where the lower you get, your lat can start to do stuff. So again, it depends on the person. If now someone's got no lats, you don't really have to worry about them taking over and doing much. But I've had some people that are very kind of lat dominant, and as they tuck in at the side, I can literally see as the movement initiates, some lats going, and you know, until basically they get past, it can be some lats. So just same as everything, it's not a one size fits all. Kind of just worth messing around with, see what feels best. See how this feels for me. Keep your hands up just a teeny bit higher. And even as you come to the finish, keep them a teeny bit higher. Just see how that feels. Same thing, keep the hands up a little bit. I just want to see how that feels. Right there, yep, straight out. How's that feel?
Definitely it's more challenging.
Yeah. Let's go like 2 more like that. Good. Nice. So Brian's got some cool stuff. If you're a nerd, I find this stuff cool for rear delt. So sit up nice and tall for me and raise your arm up to your side. And bring it right out here. So if you can see, like he's one now, most of you guys at home might not have this problem. He has a big rear delt, all right? And so basically, I don't know what the nerds will say, but technically I think there's 7 heads of the delt. So people obviously talk about the front, the side, the rear, or anterior, posterior if you want to be a big nerd. But his rear delt, you can basically see, especially when he's going, we'll see some video, you can see really 2 separate heads of it right here. And if you look at the way his fibers run like kind of like this, they kind of run up high. So if I'm actually having his dip down here and coming down to him, his rear delt's running up here, while the plane of motion is kind of more diagonal. So again, the rear delt goes this way, the plane of motion is more down here. So he's someone, when I look at him the way that he does it, this more tucked down doesn't line up quite as well for him as he does when he actually keeps his arms a little bit more on kind of this high elbow plane. So when he's up here, and again, when we actually see the video going, you guys can pay a little bit more attention. Like this keeps his whole rear delt a little bit more on that same plane, and the kind of second head of his rear delt up here as well too, kind of right on plane there. So that's what I was really messing around with when he tucked it down more here. He's got a lot of meat back here as well too. I could kind of see it look like this was doing a little bit more work. And these, again, this rear delt was kind of staying up on this plane, and his arm was coming down this plane. So everything looks like it lines up a little bit better, kind of more that high elbow position. And then when he was asking how it felt, he said it seemed a little bit more challenging.
Oh, like it's, it's like go for like a barbell curl to an isolated curl.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's the type of thing. Now that kind of stuff is tricky at home too, because again, now if you're not giant yet, then you can't really tell how big your rear delt is. So that's why I say it is worth messing around with, because again, in my opinion, I would argue he's gonna have more isolated rear delt stimulus here, whereas if he dips down before, his rear delt doesn't quite line up as well, and it would end up maybe being just more back, so. Yeah, looks good. Up just a little, right there, good. I think I'm maybe gonna put this one lower for you. To the finish, same thing, keep them right there, good. Good reps. Same thing, really think wide. Drive them to the walls, wide to the walls, hard squeeze, good. Hands up a little bit, there we go. Drive wide. Let's go 2 more. Don't worry how far back they come now. Chest up, arms up, drive wide. Go, 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 go. Good, 1 more. Nice.
So, I've noticed the cuff training so much, especially with shoulders, from you, like on Instagram.
Yeah.
Do you do these like more than anything else now? Like
for raises? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like honestly, once I like
would you feel stronger at these now than you would doing, traditional dumbbell stuff now, or?
It's not even like strong. I guess the short answer is yes. I mean, I would say yes, I do feel stronger, but it's like I'm so used to now, like you don't realize how you get used to like an exercise's profile, the way it feels. And so like honestly, like I just feel like when I do normal dumbbells, I just feel like it feels like stupid to me because there's like I'm so used to now having challenge down here, and that's honestly for me like it makes a big difference for me. Like a lot of people struggle as they do dumbbell laterals to not like shrug, and that was kind of always a lot of people like, oh, all I feel is traps, all I feel is traps. And obviously because it's like as you're coming to the finish, if you look at like obviously your arm path to start with it is actually out, but your arm path to finish is up. Yeah. So if where you're most challenged, you're thinking up. Then also you have your traps that kind of go up. So I just feel like obviously you're working just to this one point of the exercise. Is that really hard? So that's the real thing. Like when I do dumbbells, I just feel like it's just really hard, like right up here, and then I just feel like again like an idiot coming down here. So like that's half of it. Is like I think it's just I like the feeling of load because it's the same for me like any muscle. Like you're stronger like in these ranges, like these mid and lengthen ranges. So like whenever I'm doing an exercise, if I don't feel like I have any challenge there, I just feel like I'm kind of like wasting it or something. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, it's like now it's like I don't really have a reason to ever do dumbbells necessarily, but yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder, because obviously, like, this is, new to me, so obviously I'm not going to feel as strong as it is compared to what I'm normally used to doing week after week after week.
Yeah.
But yes, and I feel like this is like I would call this just like your exercise.
Yeah.
That's why, so I wonder how much you did it and like how much stronger and more comfortable you felt this now as opposed to,
Well, it's funny because like for so long, even when I was like still like competing and stuff, I did a lot of dumbbells as well too, just because like I feel like that's what happens when you have like where like it's not as challenging through the whole range of motion of one point. I just found like I always felt like, man, for delts I have to do a lot of volume to get them to grow. But I was realizing like the majority of exercises I was doing, because if again you think free weights, if all you do is free weights for raises, for whether it's front raises, side delts, rear delts, you're overloading just one point. You're overloading the top where it's short. So again, if it's not as much stimulus through the whole range of motion, I feel like that's why a lot of people feel like they have to do more volume. Because I would say if I'm like me doing a raise with a cable from here to here is like twice as much stimulus as me doing a dumbbell from here to here. So it's like what happened is and so honestly I always used to do it, like for a while I transitioned where I was doing lots of dumbbell raises and I was starting to do some cables, and then I just found out felt like I was getting so much more out of cables that I started prioritizing them. And then when I was prioritizing them, honestly, it made a really big development difference for me. And then once I started prioritizing them, when I would I'll do dumbbells later in the workout or do some more, like I found out I was like, one, I didn't feel like I need to. I felt like once you do obviously those couple sets of laterals, like your delts are done, right? You know the feeling of my lateral delts are done. I've done it through the whole range of motion. There's nothing left for me to do there. And then I found that I was like feeling like really just like almost like a waste of time doing dumbbells. So at some point in time, pretty much just switched. Like, all right, well, I'm just gonna do as much volume as I feel like I need with these. And then I didn't even feel like I needed, them anymore. And again, everybody always thinks it's like the free weight versus cable thing. And it's not, it's like, just like, it's a semantic thing. It's like the loading pattern. It's like, that's just how dumbbells work. If I'm gonna stand and do both, it's like, it's only gonna be hard at one point. So I still like free weights for stuff. Like we'll do like a barbell press today. Like I like free weights for some things, for like pressing stuff and stuff, they make a lot of sense. But just for raises, it's like once you get used to challenging the whole point, it's like, why would I go back to the other thing? Sure. So for everybody following along, if you don't have cables, I honestly think the reverse pec deck is also a great option. So if your gym has that, just setting up a very similar position. The only tough part with that is, so I think honestly reverse pec deck would probably fit Brian great because of his structure. Like he works well in kind of this little bit more of a high position. If you're one of the people where this doesn't feel comfortable and obviously you feel more comfortable down here, then reverse pec deck's probably not the best. I mean, the more you lean forward on it, you can get a little bit more kind of towards this plane, but still not the same. So for something everyone should have, I would say, is just kind of prone on a bench. So again, if you want to do rear delts with dumbbells, still a fine option. Like I said, the thing is there's no challenge here. So that's why I like cables better, is out of the bottom, the cables are already producing a lot of joint torque, whereas here with a dumbbell, there's no challenge. But you can still do the same stuff. You can mess around with what feels better. So again, if I was having Brian do with dumbbells, he'd probably be somewhere around this position. So kind of, again, this more kind of like teed out position. But the same thing, you can mess around. So this can be effective. This plane can be effective, this plane can be effective. So all these positions in here, your rear delt can work. It really just comes to a certain degree of where do you feel it the best, and most importantly, where do you have good development, but then also thinking about where you feel other stuff as well too. So if you have a position where, again, if you get too close and you actually start to feel your lats, then maybe try a little bit higher and see how that feels, and so just mess around to find your spot. And like I was saying before, what would be the difference maybe if you don't have cables or machines? You might just feel like you have to do a little bit more volume there. So if I'm not saying dumbbells are bad, I'm just saying obviously it's, cables have a little bit more efficient loading. So if all you have is dumbbells, and again, traditionally, obviously people can still produce great results with that. I think that's probably the reason people need a little bit more volume with them. So again, if we're doing 2 working sets, or maybe 3 working sets at most with cables, you might feel like you need to do more of 3, 4, 5 with dumbbells. And that might be the reason, because you're not getting any challenge here. So you just need to do more sets, to get basically the same amount of challenge. So I was saying here, for anybody looking, you can see separate heads of his rear delts. So again, I would consider both of these heads technically part of the rear delt. So those are the things we're looking to line up. Most people aren't going to have that going on, that much size on their delts, and that clearly the different heads. But those are the things I'm looking at, the plane of those fibers when I'm lining him up. Get a couple more. Drive wide. Squeeze. Good. Let's go one more. Again, think to the walls. Think wide. Go. And same thing, partials to finish. Bring them all the way up, not too quick. Okay, yep. Go. Yep. Good. Straight out, good. Just think wide on those partials. Keep tension on, not too quick, not too quick. There we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, good.
That was the first time I'm actually really mentally connected with like, okay, just go out to the walls.
Yeah.
And it felt so good, like, oh, hold on, I want one more of those.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Because I know you're already saying it, but like, just because you're like, you know, in the heat of the moment, it's just struggling. Like I'm hearing you, but I'm not comprehending. And that one, like, oh, wait a minute, and I actually felt it. So
Yeah, so if anybody here, that little cues I was given was think wide. And again, sometimes it's the same if anything, if I'm thinking too much back on these, like you can go here and it's rear delts. And if I was like, oh, just can I get it further back? You can just fully retract your shoulders and get your hand further back, but then it starts more traps. Yeah, so lots of times thinking wide on raises can be a good cue because then it's more just about the delt and not just moving everything back. I joke too, you could see his rear delt was starting to turn purple as we're getting to the end there. I want to joke, like I want to get like one of those like those paint cards where it's like different shades and I can be like, I can put it in and be like, oh, we're there, we're done, and go by the color, you know, so it's, oh, we've hit purple, all right, we're good to go. I know it's very scientific, but I think I could pioneer that, so.
what's your take on doing pronated grip as opposed to neutral grip? Especially like, you know, going to the reverse pec machine.
Yeah, so whether more here, it really depends. So like, we'll use your delt again as an example. So I always tell people, like, so if we really said, so what grip is better if we're doing a reverse pec deck like this grip? Well, if I actually just keep his elbow still and do this, like what does that change at the rear delt? Because some people get confused, like how does this even affect the rear delt or the delt? And like this in and of itself changes nothing, right? So again, if I do this, you see this doesn't move position at all. But if his entire arm externally rotates or his entire arm internally rotates, then you can see the delt actually starts to move. So that starts to change position a little bit. So again, if he was on a reverse pec deck, I would want him to be in the position, so joint comfort is one thing, but in the position where things line up the best. So again, when he's more in this kind of position right here, everything just lines up a little bit better with the rear delt. If I really externally rotated you so externally rotate as far as you can, so you can see what starts to happen there. His rear delt's a little bit more kind of under the joint, and his now side delt is a little bit more. So if he was moving in this plane, now this would actually be a little bit more of a side delt exercise for him as a rear delt. And again, that is about just alignment. There's again weird discussions now about, well, alignment matters or doesn't matter. Of course it matters, you know. And so again, the plane of motion on a pec deck, for example, is whatever's more in that plane can do more work. So his rear delt would still work. His like front delt would even work a teeny bit, but this just puts a lot more of this in plane. So that's the one thing is where it put like hand position, if you're moving your whole humerus, changes what can maybe do most work. And then you also have to listen to your joint as well too. Because I've had some people where it's like, this might look like it lines up pretty well, but like if they're too internally rotated, the joint feels like garbage. So then that might be the point where it's like, okay, well for that person, it might not work. We have to find something where this might be a little bit better, and that might be someone that cables works a little bit better for, because like again, some people, they get on the reverse pec deck, and because you're in that plane, even if you move out of position, it just feels like garbage. It's like, well, don't do it then, you know. And they might be someone that they need more cable work. So basically just doing a, you know, overhead press. So I'll mess around with making sure that we got this set the right height and everything. But the only things that I really want on this is, you know, let your hips actually be slid forward a little bit, so it's more contact with the upper back. So technically we're not perfectly, you know, vertical. We're leaned back just a little bit. And then I want a path where you're a little bit more tucked, you know, so we're not gonna be like way out here teed out. I want you to kind of just pull in right here, so your upper arm's at your side, and then when you're grabbing, you basically got your hand directly above your elbow. And then from there, we're just gonna go to your kind of comfortable position at the top. So basically just short of lockout. And then at the bottom, wherever we set the bottom, I do wanna do like just a little bit of a dead stop. So just pause, and then just short of that. There we go. A little slow on the way down. A little pause, there we go. That's how I want everyone to control. Even as you come to the top, don't quite pop it. Just stay, there we go. Just nice smooth pace at the top. A little pause. Good. Pause. Good. And as you come to the top, think about driving that arm towards your head. So don't think about that up. Think about this. There we go. And give it a little squeeze when you're there. 2 more. There we go. 1 more. Good.
Oh, yeah, I felt that too for sure.
Nice. Like the thing you'll find is like it might, just because it's new, there'll be a certain amount of weight chopped off.
Oh, for sure.
And then, but honestly, like you'll find too, like some of that, like once you get it, like the form nailed down too, like you'll get stronger quicker just to kind of as you like rewire to the movement. But then some of it actually is like, that's the good thing I say for like people that are like actually big. I mean, at the end of the day, like obviously we all still like lifting a lot of weight as much as possible. But at some point in time, you're like, man, if I can be using like Because that's the thing where people mess up. Like people that don't want to train hard will use like good form as an excuse to train like way too light. Like, oh yeah, I'm just squeezing. Where it's like if you get it to some point where it's like, well, you know that you're not gonna like limit how much weight you can use. You're not gonna like cheat yourself on that. But if like, man, if you can lose like, 20 less pounds on something, but like make it just as hard, if not harder, then that's like a win. Because it's like, all right, well, it's gonna be generally any time that it's harder on the muscle is easier on the joints as well too. Just keeping it stricter. Yeah, and then honestly, then that's like longevity is huge on that as well too, right? So it's like a lot of like, again, legit, like really strong guys I work with. I'm like, man, it's not like saying, hey, take all this weight off. It's like, no, you're probably still gonna use 80, 90% of what you're capable of. But if we can just make it that much stricter as well too, yeah, more stimulus, but also longevity. Good, 2 more. One. Really good. Nice. Good set. So a couple things here to note, because people might ask on the setup and why we're doing this. Honestly, so again, you want to keep consistent training principles in my opinion. So someone from the outside would say, well, why is sometimes he uses cables and sometimes he uses free weights? That's not consistent. And the thing that I'm looking at is loading patterns, is where are we challenging a muscle at different lengths? And that's why I don't really have attachment to free weights or cables or whatever. I just look at how it loads the muscle. So why for this are we doing a free weight and the other ones we do cables? Because of how the loading pattern works. So this is your front delt in this case, and it's more lengthened through mid ranges. And just the way that obviously because we have the weight in the hand and it's further away from the joint, it basically overloads that lengthen and mid range. So again, just like I need a cable to overload the side delt, rear delt, lengthen and mid, I can get away with pretty much almost any press. So I tell people, when people ask what's the best press, I think you have the most versatility on options here. So you could do barbell like we're doing here, you could do dumbbells, you could do machines, and all of them are very, very similar. Obviously there's a little bit of trade-offs, going from dumbbells to barbell, you get a little bit more stability. Going even from a barbell to a machine, you get a little bit more stability, and that can be a good thing, of course. But sometimes then with dumbbells, arguably you have the most freedom of range of motion. You get a little bit more freedom of range of motion, obviously with the grip width and stuff on here. So anyway, honestly, whatever guys at home doing this workout, any type of overhead press is a fine option as well here. So if barbell doesn't feel great, grab dumbbells. If dumbbells are a pain in the ass, grab a machine. And then I love to do kind of like a dead stop, like rack press. Like one, it's a great one if you're training by yourself, because then you're not going to die. That's always good. I always say death prevention is form tip number 1. So one, it's nice, and then also it's cheat proof. So it standardizes the range of motion. So again, when we started, I know that he can comfortably get here on his own. So there's no reason he can't press her. Some people make up some arbitrary stuff with training as well too, where it's like, oh, you got to stop at 90. I don't know if somebody made that up at some point in time, which is idiotic. I mean, if you bring it down, this is all the further you can comfortably go. Fine, you really got jacked up shoulders. But most people, if you tuck in a little bit, I would say that too. For most overhead press, there's nothing wrong with doing dumbbells out here, but the advantage of tucked in just a little bit is more range of motion, and sometimes it's more comfortable. So you see here, that's why I put them just a little bit more tucked, and then obviously hand right over that tuck position. And so now we've got a lot of range of motion, a nicely lengthened front delt. We're getting right to the mid-range where he's strong. And then again, once we figured out what that depth was, it's like might as well set the bottom rack. And like you see, I've been having him kind of dead stop. So not to the point where he's completely relaxed. And again, what's the point of that? It's just make sure, same thing, no momentum being used. And and that's my thought process. If I can make these harder and I can standardize reps, that's great. And obviously this feels a little bit different to Brian as well too, but long term, once he gets a little bit more used to that, he might use a little less weight than he might normally do for overhead press doing those stops. But at the end of the day too, he's still gonna have a ton of weight, still have a lot of challenge on the muscle, but probably be easier on the joints as well too. And that last little cue I gave him to finish was like, just a lot of people, if you think up too much when you're pressing, you can literally sometimes the shrug to finish, and sometimes you miss range of motion. People tend to stop right here, and that's kind of what he's doing a little bit, was kind of coming a little bit quick to the top. Whereas I said, just think about bringing that bicep into the head to finish, and just a little bit more of a strong contraction can keep the traps out of it as well too. But that's a subtle one. I don't always make everybody do that, because again, the most important part here is the bottom. So that's why I really just want a little pause, and then go from there, to make sure we're keeping it all in the delts. Good. Yep. Another one. Gotcha. Stay tight. Finish, finish, finish. Come on. One more. Come on. You got it. Stay tight. Yep. There we go. Great. We got a couple now. Good reps. Everyone the same now. Come on. Go, 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 go. Finish, 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 finish. There we go. Down slow. Yep, I got you. Go, 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 go. There we go. Good finish on that one too. Come on, come on, come on. Yep. Go, go, go. Good. Come on. We got 2 now. Best reps. Yep. One more. Come on. Yep. Finish. Yeah, I got you. Come on. Go, 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 go. Nice. On that negative. Nice set.
Big difference. Like I said, even with the cables and stuff, like when I'm feeling pretty strong, like, oh, I can do more.
Yeah.
It's like that 1 or 2 more I had in my head just somehow magically just disappeared.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think that's the reason I like that the most too, is you'll find like, you don't realize it. It's actually from a good thing, because it's like normally if you don't have like those really standardized things, you're able to just kind of like work hard and like little bounces to do a little bit more, right? Where it's like if everything's really standardized, like those little pauses, that way, like, because that's the whole point really, is to hit that point of fatigue and failure where the muscle like literally can't do anything even if you wanted it to. And so yeah, it's nice. I mean, because that's some stuff like I've started doing lots of things is like especially pressing movements for a lot of reasons. Like I do a lot more like dead stop stuff. A lot of people ask, is like, do I have to do that? And I was like, not really, but I was like, I really can't find an argument like not to do it, right? Because like, again, once you get that out of your head, it's like, yeah, it might take the weight off a teeny bit, but that's normally what it does. Is for me, it's like you might even be able to do a similar weight as before, but as opposed to being able to like, where is your failure point? It's like, oh, I kind of grind out 2 or 3 from wherever. Now it's like, oh no, like failure was at 5. Like that was it. That was, you know, whatever. It just kind of keeps those points like, you know, obviously a little bit less ability to just kind of grunt through and cheat through stuff, you know? So we're gonna do a little superset here to kind of finish up. So the first one I'm gonna have you do, well, just to mess around with the form, because I'm not sure if I'm gonna like this height or not. Yeah, it should work. So basically gonna do like a face pull. So gonna bring it like right out here. And all I really want you to think about as you're coming to the top is just get the back of the hand going that way as far as you can. So you're keeping it above your head and then just coming back here and squeeze. So what we'll do is gonna do these first. So again, kind of a face pulley type thing. And then we'll rack those, and then I'm gonna give you a barbell. I'll mess around, probably actually have you on an easy bar with a slightly underhand grip, so going right from lap to right about here. So we'll just do like a combination of kind of, this is every head of the delt to a certain degree, and all your external rotators, and this will be almost all just front delt, a little bit of side delt, like that. Yep, that's it. Just nice smooth pace, hard squeeze right there, good. Good, 2 more. Good. Right there, perfect. Good, 3 more. Nice, smooth pace. 2. Last one. Good. Just set that right in front of you. If you're really doing them properly and with like decent load, same as anything, like half of it is like different than all the other raises to a certain extent. Because if you're doing rear delt, obviously you don't have any issue of obviously having to manage the weight's impact on your body. You know what I mean? So if I'm laying down on a bench, the bench is keeping in place. When you're doing a lateral raise, because it's obviously the weights offset each other, there's no like leaning. Half of it is when people get out here, they don't realize like how much obviously all this weight is like trying to like fold you in half. So you have people, if you're really doing them, it's like you start to have like your back fatigue, your abs fatigue, just like all this weight out in front of you. And so it's like if you can lie down doing them, like that's half of it. Is like, oh, like now I don't feel like this whole weird thing trying to manage this weight in front of me, and I can actually just make it really, really hard on my front delts.
On my own, my favorite ones would just to be like, similar like this, and just on an incline barbell bench.
Yep.
And then I wouldn't load very much weight, but then I would just do it really slow negative, just because I think the gravity would make it heavy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
go back up. And then,
Yeah, and honestly, I'll mess around with like hand position on this one. This is one of those same things where this underhand grip, why I have you do that is it's more externally rotated.
Yeah.
So that actually keeps the front delt a little bit more isolated.
Well, because the delt and the bicep there, right?
Yeah, and you get a little bicep. That's the thing too I always watch. I mean, it's one is your bicep is gonna do a little bit of that, so make sure it feels comfortable in the bicep. So that's the advantage. If you turn more this way, like more neutral or even more pronated, you will take the bicep out of it a little bit more, but then you also incorporate other heads of the delt. So it's not really right or wrong, because again, what's happening if I'm raising this way, you know, opposing
Well,
gravity.
but I like that because, I mean, just because the front delt and the bicep there work in unison as far as, you know.
Yep.
So it's same.
Yeah, 3 more. 2. Good, 3 more. 2. Last one, you got this. Good. Nice. So we'll do same, I'll spot you to 10-ish reps or whatever, then just bring your arms up here and keeping your hands there, I'll drop the pin and lay back down into it. And then when we go to this one, we'll do the same thing except on the drop, we'll take it to a press. So you'll do all your raises till you're done, and then when you're done, you're gonna turn it almost into like this type of pressy type thing. So pretty good elbow bend there, and then still pressing it straight up, not letting it go over the shoulder joint. So again, so all the presses will be basically right here. So same thing here, a little pause at the bottom, and then right there to finish. Good, couple more, I'll get you there. Yep, good. We got 2.
Yep.
Smooth. Yeah, 1 more. Yep. All right, right down. Same pace, nice and smooth, hard squeeze to finish. There we go. Good, a few more, you got them. Same pace, same control. Hard squeeze, yep. Again. Good. We got 2 more. Come on, best ones. Let's go. Yep, 1 more. Go, 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 go. Yeah. Good. Good. A few more, come on. Good, come on. Stop right there. 2 more, come on. Yep, 1 more. Press. Not too fast. Good, keep it right out in front of you, go ahead. There we go. Smooth it out just a little. There we go, reps like that, come on. Good, keep going, come on. Good, don't worry about height, keep it smooth. Most of the work's at the bottom, there we go. We got 4. 3, come on. 2. Last one. Nice. It's a fun one. All right, guys, so that's a wrap. If I forgot to do it on any of the exercises, so again, we're running through real quick. The first exercise, lateral raises, 2 working sets, 1 drop set. Then we did the rear delts. I think we did 3 working sets there. And instead of drop sets, we just did some partials to extend sets. Overhead press, we did 2 working sets. Off of the second one, we did a drop set. And then the superset to finish. 2 working sets there as well too. We supersetted the face pull to the front raise variation. So again, for equipment swaps, I think obviously I said on the overhead press, any overhead press is a fine option. And then for that last one, obviously you can do the front raise with an easy bar. You can do front raises with another bar if you've got it, or even dumbbells. And if you didn't have the cable, you could always even do a face pull with a band for the little superset. And so again, even off of that superset, we did a drop set on the face pulls. So again, 2 working sets, and on the second working set, we did a drop set on the face pulls, and that kind of a mechanical drop set on that front raise. So we went from a front raise into a press to extend the set. And so again, that's a really typical structure I like for delts. So again, I think, again, you'll have some people occasionally go back and forth a little bit of like, do you need drop sets and all that kind of stuff. And again, from professional observation, I think delts respond the best from both. You know, again, straight sets being the kind of the main part of your workout, but sprinkling in a little bit more dense work with supersets, drop sets. So that's very typical. I would like to do, 3 exercises, kind of straight sets all by themselves, 1 kind of more for front, side, and rear. And then that superset we did at the end, those face pulls work a little bit of everything. I mean, honestly, to a certain extent, every head of the delt, some of your external rotators as well too. And that front raise was a little bit back, mainly just the front delt. So just moving a lot of.
Yeah, no, they all felt great. And I mean, you're saying how many working sets we did, but don't cut it short. It's not like all those warm-up sets were walking the park either. So.
Yeah.
But I was wrong, as I just said to you about the force reps on the face pulls too, how great it felt to like engage like muscles you forget like you have.
Yeah.
That range. It was almost like doing like a rehab session and a training session at the same time. But yeah, no, it all felt great. The pressing was very humbling. Like I said, I'm usually pretty strong overhead pressing, and that definitely was a lot less weight than I normally use. But like you said, for longevity and for comfortability, it did feel great. And like my shoulders feel taxed, but I don't feel like they're gonna hurt tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like my shoulders don't feel like gonna hurt tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is great. And as you were saying too, if you can get to failure without having to do, all the weight and the short range and just taxing your body, then like, why not? So
yeah, sweet. Well, that's it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Give that workout a go on your own.
I'm glad that I slided in your DMs.
Yeah,
and got to make this happen.
Yeah, glad to have you in. And you guys got any questions for us? Hit us down in the comments below.
Who better?